Part 107. Yi Yang defeated Confucian scholars, and then successfully implemented Chinese characters in Holy Dynasty. Rao Jingxuan hesitated. As everyone knows, his calculation ability is a mess. If he competes with the confident Zhun Lin, he will definitely lose terribly. It's not good for you to be like this. Using what you are good at to bully others who are not good at it would be too deceiving. Some people held grievances for Rao Jingxuan. Yes, the others nodded in agreement. Zhun Lin wasn't angry either. He looked at the students who were holding grievances and said with a light smile, "Then whoever of you is planning to be strong, come and compete with me." This moment stunned everyone. Unfortunately, all the children here are not interested in counting, so they are not good at counting. Just when everyone was embarrassed, a crisp children's voice sounded, "I'm coming." In the crowd, there was a short boy who appeared in the line. Everyone looked over and saw that it was the unworthy young master of the Chen family. And they all showed a look of disdain. Although the boy looks ordinary, his big eyes are as pure and deep as obsidian, which makes people want to take a second look. He glanced at everyone indifferently, and then bowed his hands to Yi Yang and the three of them, and said in a neither humble nor arrogant tone, "Small student Chen Zhen, come to enlighten me." Zhun Lin looked up and down at Chen Zhen in front of him. Remembering what Yi Yang said, people can't look at appearances, sea and water can't be measured. So he didn't have the heart to underestimate the enemy, and he said, "Okay, what are we going to do?" Although the teacher does not like Chen Zhen's boring gourd on weekdays, but he still admires his talent in planning. Seeing Chen Zhen and Zhun Lin in the test, he recommended himself. "I'll come up with the questions. Please, master." The teacher turned around and walked to his desk, picked up a brush from the desk and started writing. After a while, a long row of addition, subtraction, multiplication and division was written on the paper, and then he said to the two, "Whoever figures it out first will win." Zhun Lin glanced at the simple calculation and nodded, indicating that he understood. Chen Zhen looked at it for a while, then took out a large number of 10-centimeter wooden sticks made of bamboo from the calculation bag that he carried with him, and handed it to Zhun Lin, saying, "You didn't bring a calculation plan, I'll take mine. I'll lend it to you." Zhun Lin used to rely on calculations. But since he learned the 99 multiplication table and vertical calculation, he was no longer interested in complicated calculations, shook his head and refused, "Thank you. But I don't need it." "You don't need it?" Chen Zhen was puzzled at first, then shocked. "Can you do mental arithmetic? Do you want to be so powerful?" "I don't have the ability." "Mental calculation." He is not yet talented enough to be rich. "Then how do you count?" Chen Zhen asked. "Vertical calculation." After Zhun Lin said this, he saw that everyone was looking at him with puzzled eyes. He knew that his opportunity to perform was coming, so he picked up the brush on the table and calculated it on the paper. The people around them all gathered around, looking at Zhun Lin's writing strange words, curious and surprised, wondering what Zhun Lin wrote. Yi Yang and Zhun Yi were pushed out by a group of half-old children, and they smiled helplessly as they looked at Zhun Lin, who was surrounded by everyone. Without making everyone wait long, Zhun Lin calculated a long list of calculations, and then told the teacher the answer. "Sir, I figured it out, the answer is 6,712. The teacher looked disbelieving. "You know, such a long series of numbers." Zhun Lin only took a short time to solve it, which is completely unconventional. Even if it is a master planner, it will take a cup of tea to solve this problem, let alone a young boy. Fake? Does anyone believe it? You can figure out this question just by writing a bunch of strange words, which is too ridiculous. I think it is too. It must be nonsense. It must be. Everyone was talking about it, and they were all skeptical that Jun Lin could figure out the answer so quickly. A large group of people were busy denouncing Jun Lin for nonsense. Only Chen Zhen was quietly holding the calculation, and when the answer he calculated was exactly the same as that of Jun Lin, an incredible expression appeared on his calm face. The answer is the same. Although the master teacher suspected that Jun Lin was nonsense, he saw that Chen Zhen was using calculations. And he kept his eyes on Chen Zhen. Seeing the incredible look on Chen Zhen's face, he knew that Jun Lin was right. How is it possible? How can a child who is only 10 years old figure out this problem in such a short time? Chen Zhen suddenly looked at Jun Lin, with a flash of excitement in his eyes. How did you do it? Why did you figure this out in such a short time? You want to know? Yi Yang on the side asked. A strong desire for knowledge flashed in Chen Zhen's eyes, and he nodded again and again. He has never been interested in anything in his life, he is only interested in calculation. Now that someone can figure out a calculation problem faster, of course he wants to know. If you want to know, I'll ask Xing Hao to teach you. Yi Yang didn't turn a corner. He just dug a corner in front of the teacher. At this moment, the teacher realized that Yi Yang was here to make trouble. He was just here to dig people. He was about to scold Yi Yang for being immoral, but out of the corner of his eye he caught a glimpse of Dean Hong entering the school. He hurriedly bowed to Dean Hong and said, "Hello, Dean Hong." Hearing Dean Hong, Yi Yang quickly turned his attention to Dean Hong, only to see Dean Hong wearing a gray robe and walking towards them. Looking at Dean Hong, Yi Yang looked surprised. He thought Dean Hong was a dying tree or a scrawny old man, but looking at the middle-aged man walking with wind, he really couldn't think of this. The burly middle-aged man was regarded as Dean Hong, who was admired by everyone. The other students bowed respectfully to Dean Hong. I have seen Dean Hong. Dean Hong ignored the saluting children. He looked at Jun Yi, who was dressed in white, and gave a big salute. Minister has seen the Emperor. Long live the Emperor, long live. Everyone looked at Dean Hong, who was kneeling down, puzzled in their hearts, and when they heard the word Emperor, they were shocked and knelt down in awe. Minister has seen your Majesty. Long live your Majesty. Get up, I'm out on patrol today, so I don't have to do this big ceremony, Jun Yi said generously. Everyone stood up one after another. Dean Hong was a little disgusted with Jun Yi, who came uninvited. He knew why Jun Yi came, so he was even more disgusted. Jun Yi looked at Dean Hong with a half smile. Dean Hong, do you know why I came here today? Dean Hong certainly knew why Jun Yi came, but he pretended to be stupid and didn't want to make it clear. Minister, I'm scared. The people really don't know why you are here today. Your Majesty. Yi Yang was the most annoying person who knew it but pretended to be stupid, and said bluntly, "We are here today to discuss the promotion of Chinese characters with Dean Hong." Dean Hong did not expect Yi Yang to speak bluntly, and his face darkened with anger. Since Yi Yang was so frank, he didn't beat around the bush and said bluntly, "This word is handed down from our ancestors. How can we change it if we change it? Because this word is complicated and the text is also very complicated, it is difficult to learn, easy to learn, easy to write, and easy to remember. Chinese characters that I promote are conducive to the study, exchange and promotion of the holy country's culture." Also, seeing that Dean Hong wanted to refute, Yi Yang continued, "There are still many incomplete words in the holy country, and there are many meanings that cannot be expressed in words at all, especially the calculation part. If we use Arabic numerals, it will greatly reduce the calculation time." "Oh, it's all up to you to say it with one mouth. Who believes?" Dean Hong's face was full of disdain. Yi Yang always had a polite smile on his face. "Since you don't believe it, let's compare." I heard that Dean Hong has a good plan. Why don't we compare it? When the people around heard that Yi Yang wanted to find Dean Hong for a test, they could not bear it. They couldn't stop laughing at Yi Yang's lack of self-control. And they dared to speak up and ask Dean Hong for a test plan. You must know that Dean Hong's calculation ability is so powerful that no one dares to ask Dean Hong for a test plan. Okay. Compare is compare. Dean Hong agreed cheerfully, and he said to the guard beside him, Xiao Wu, go and fetch the 9-square grid from the old master's study and let this young master try it. After listening to the 9-square grid, Tianfu Academy, everyone in the room was stunned. They didn't expect Dean Hong to be so ruthless. 9-square grid, but the nightmare of all their students, every time they have to fill out the 9-square grid. It takes them more than a day to fill out all of them correctly. 9-square grid? Yi Yang was a little confused. Don't tell him that this 9-square grid is the Sudoku game he played in elementary school. When Jun Yi heard the 9-square grid, his expression changed slightly. He had counted the 9-square grid before, but it was too difficult. In the end, he had no time to fill out the 9-square grid. Just as he was thinking to himself how to help Yi Yang break the bet without a trace, he went to get the guard of the 9-square grid and ran back with a finely crafted wooden board. Head of the hospital, Zhugong Zhe too, is here, the guard said while panting heavily. It seems that he is running as hard as he can to get this 9-square grid. Yi Yang looked at the 9-square grid they were talking about, and saw countless small grids and a few scattered numbers drawn on it, and laughed. The 9-square grid was really the Sudoku game he played when he was a child. Just as Jun Yi was about to persuade Dean Hong to try other plans, he saw Yi Yang smiling, and he was in shock. Could it be that Yi Yang can also be in a 9-square grid? Dean Hong's face is full of confidence. You must know that this 9-square grid was invented by him. And the difficulty factor is not ordinary. Even the best in his academy will take more than half a day to complete it correctly. He handed the 9-square grid to Yi Yang and explained. This is the 9-square grid invented by Master Hong. The rules are very simple. Just fill in the numbers from 1 to 9 into the 9-square grid without repetition, so that the horizontal, vertical and oblique rows of 3, the sum of the numbers is equal to 15, and it is necessary to ensure that the numbers in each row, each column, and each thick line in the palace contain 1 to 9. And no repetition is allowed. It's simple. Yi Yang took the order from Dean Hong. 9-square grid, looked at the characters above. Although he was very unfamiliar with the characters of the Holy Dynasty, he still knew the characters from 1 to 9. Simple? Dean Hong laughed angrily and didn't say much. Orderly waiting for Yi Yang to joke. 9-square grid, those who first heard the rules thought it was very simple, but in the end, they were tortured to the point of crying. Jun Lin pulled Yi Yang's sleeve to signal him not to be careless. After all, this 9-square grid was his nightmare. Yi Yang returned a reassuring smile to Jun Yi. Then picked up the pen on the table and started his Sudoku game. In fact, as long as you master the method, the Sudoku game is actually very simple. He used a one-shot Sudoku game, which is commonly used by novices, to fill in all the numbers in a short while, and then handed it to Dean Hong, smiling. Okay, finished. Finished? Everyone was shocked. This is impossible. No one will fill in the difficult 9-square grid in the time of a cup of tea. How is it possible? Dean Hong took the 9-square grid, looked at the words on it, and checked all of them carefully. And found no mistakes and was horrified. Who is the other party? Why is it so powerful? And he easily broke the 9-square grid that he was proud of. How did you do it? Jun Yi was restless. You know, he was tortured by a 9-square grid to the point of doubting his life. Can you share it? Chen Zhen looked expectant. He was interested in counting, and he had tried the 9-square grid. But it took him a whole day to fill in all of them correctly. This is very simple. Just use a knife to flow. Yi Yang took the 9-square grid in the hands of Dean Hong again and began to explain it in detail. Everyone surrounded Yi Yang and listened carefully to Yi Yang's explanation method. After they listened to the art of Sudoku game solution, they all showed incredible expressions. God! This is too easy. Thinking of how stupid they used to be in a small grid, they wanted to slap themselves. Why didn't they think of such a simple method before? After explaining the art of Sudoku game solution, Yi Yang looked at Dean Hong, who was already shocked beyond measure, and asked with a smile, "So, Dean Hong, is it my turn to test you now?" Dean Hong was startled. After a while, he asked uncertainty, "Test me?" Yi Yang nodded affirmatively. Dean Hong is also a knowledgeable person. He is very confident that he will not be stumped by Yi Yang, and nodded, "Okay, you ask the question." Since the other party said so, Yi Yang is welcome. "Okay, great aspiration. Please listen to my question. Walking on the street alone, carrying a pot to make wine. If you meet the store, double the amount, and drink a bucket when you meet the flower. If you meet the store and the flower, drink the wine from the dry pot. How much wine is in the wine pot?" Everyone looked at Yi Yang dumbfounded. What kind of question is this? They don't understand it at all. Although Dean Hong heard every word Yi Yang said clearly, what does it mean that he didn't understand when he put these words together? Seeing that Dean Hong was stunned, Yi Yang didn't give him any face at all, and asked with a smile, "Dean Hong, how much wine is in this jug? Are you sure this is a calculation problem?" Dean Hong is not stupid. What if this Yi Yang deliberately found questions that he didn't have? Yi Yang nodded. "I'm very sure that this is a calculation problem. If Dean Hong doesn't know, I can answer it." After hearing this, Dean Hong was instantly unhappy. Yi Yang was obviously trying to belittle him. He hummed twice, picked up the writing brush and sat at the desk to sort out his thoughts. The students around didn't even dare to speak out. They stood silently on the side, staring at Dean Hong and counting Yi Yang's question. Chen Zhen sat alone in the corner, thinking about the problem Yi Yang said, racking his brains to think of a solution. But he didn't learn how to solve problems or solve equations. Even the talented and intelligent Chen Zhen was stumped. He was thinking hard, but he didn't know where to start. Yi Yang looked at Chen Zhen, who was sitting in the corner, with a flash of admiration in his eyes. At least when Chen Zhen encountered difficulties, he did not wait for Dean Hong to solve the problem like other students, but thought about the problem quietly. This invaluable spirit is worth learning by all. He pulled Jun Yi to the seat below, and found 2 random seats to sit down. Jun Yi was also curious about Yi Yang's answer to this question, and asked, "What's the answer?" Yi Yang didn't give a shit. He lowered his voice and explained the idea and process of doing the question carefully to Jun Yi. And then Jun Yi suddenly realized, it's so simple. But for such a simple question, he didn't figure out the answer just now, so Jun Yi was really ashamed. Dean Hong, who was surrounded by the crowd, frowned and thought hard. He wrote all the topics that Yi Yang said just now on the paper. Looking at the questions above, he didn't know how to calculate them. 3 encounters with the shop and the flower. He knew that he had beaten and drank 3 times, and then finished the wine in the jug, but who knows how much wine there was in the jug. Time passed slowly, and it was time to dismiss in a blink of an eye, but the children were reluctant to leave, waiting for Dean Hong to figure out the problem. Dean Hong used a lot of paper, and the paper densely recorded the process of his calculation, but unfortunately it was of no use. He still didn't know the answer. In the end, he saw that Yi Yang lost his patience and finally gave up. Are you sure this is a calculation problem? Dean Hong still didn't believe that such a dizzying problem could be solved. Did Dean Hong admit defeat? Yi Yang stood up and asked Dean Hong politely. Dean Hong's old face suddenly turned into a pig's liver. He really didn't want to admit that he would admit defeat. But seeing so many students looking at him, he couldn't set a bad example for the children, so he nodded stiffly. Seeing Dean Hong admit defeat, Yi Yang walked up to Dean Hong with a smile, picked up his pen and said, "This problem is actually very easy to solve. We can use the reduction method to solve this problem." Yi Yang took this question without hesitation. The solution of the problem was clearly explained to everyone. After listening to Yi Yang's explanation, everyone suddenly realized that they understood. Especially Dean Hong, who first realized it suddenly, and then looked at him with admiration. "This gentleman, I admire it. It took so long for this old man to solve such a simple problem. It's really embarrassing." Dean Hong is polite. "Well, that's because you haven't learned it before, so you don't know how to solve the problem. And it's normal to be stumped." Yi Yang turned his words abruptly and asked with a serious face, "Now, Dean Hong, you should know why the emperor wants to promote Chinese characters?" Although Dean Hong admires Yi Yang's talent, it is absolutely impossible for him to abandon the characters handed down by his ancestors. The words handed down, the old man still disagrees. Yi Yang was so angry that he laughed. "It's really stubborn." When the other students saw that Yi Yang was disrespectful to Dean Hong, they all glared at him. Yi Yang was not afraid of the children's eyes. He looked at Dean Hong, who was ashen-faced by his own words, and cupped his hands. "Dean Hong doesn't know the practicality of these Chinese characters, so let's say something next. If Dean Hong can write all the characters handed down from your ancestors, I won't mention the promotion of Chinese characters. Dean Hong is a learned person. How could he be stumped by such a small question as Yi Yang?" and agreed immediately, "Okay." A sly smile flashed on Yi Yang's face, which directly saw Dean Hong's heart skip a beat. Yi Yang did not give Dean Hong a chance to go back and read hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. He read the first 20 elements of the periodic table of 20 chemical elements in one breath. Everyone was dumbfounded. Because there are a lot of them who have never heard of it. They naturally don't know what that word represents. "What are you reading?" Dean Hong was angry. He thought that Yi Yang deliberately found some words, so he didn't have to fool him. "Dean Hong, what you don't know doesn't mean I don't. We should improve our country's Chinese characters when they have shortcomings. Moreover, Chinese characters are easy to learn and remember. And they are very convenient for promotion. The most important thing is to calculate. Replacing sacred characters with numbers is not only convenient and concise, but also easy to use. It is more convenient for everyone to do calculations. We should not stay in place, but look forward. Because there are too many unknown puzzles in this world waiting for us to discover." Yi Yang picked up the brush beside him and wrote all the words he had just read. "Write it down. Then point to the word oxygen and say, 'This word is oxygen, oxygen of oxygen.' You don't know what oxygen is, then you should know air. Oxygen in air accounts for about 21%. Although Yi Yang said a lot regarding the knowledge of oxygen, the audience did not understand a word, and all stared at Yi Yang blankly. Seeing everyone's confused expressions, Yi Yang said to Dean Hong, "Can Dean Hong prepare 2 candles and a glass?" "This is simple." Dean Hong hurriedly called the guard to get 2 candles and a glass. The guard's speed was not limited, and after a while, he ran back out of breath and handed Yi Yang 2 candles and a glass. Yi Yang took the candle and the glass, put aside all the pen, ink, paper and inkstone on the table, and then broke a candle from it, leaving only one section on the desk, and a new section next to it. Finally, light the 2 candles and hold them upside down with glasses. Everyone looked at Yi Yang's series of operations curiously. When the long candle in the glass went out first, everyone looked surprised. And the short candle didn't last long and gradually went out. Everyone, do you know why the candle goes out? Why did the long candle go out first? Yi Yang asked everyone. Everyone shook their heads. They didn't know. Why did the candle go out when there was no wind? And why does the long branch die first and the short branch disappears later? Seeing that everyone didn't know, Yi Yang started to talk again. That's because there is no oxygen, and the combustion of fire requires the participation of oxygen. Without oxygen, fire will not burn. Yi Yang said a lot. But unfortunately everyone seemed to Yi Yang is not in a hurry to understand whether he understood or not, and said, it's normal that everyone doesn't understand. Because you haven't learned it before. In the future, all textbooks in the country will be unified, and then this knowledge will naturally be taught by someone. Last year, Yi Yang many people were selected to follow him to learn Chinese characters and various knowledge. When Chinese characters are popularized, they can leave the holy city and go to various provinces and cities to spread knowledge. In fact, Chinese characters are very easy to learn, as long as you learn pinyin and add a dictionary. It is completely so easy. Can't we add these new words to the holy characters? Dean Hong's tone slowed down a lot. He learned too much knowledge today. And for the first time realized that there are people outside people, and there are days outside the sky. Holy characters are too troublesome, children are not easy to learn. And it is not worthwhile to spend a few years to know all the characters. After all, there are too many things to learn later, and it is not worth wasting time on literacy. Is it easy to learn Chinese characters? Rao Jingxuan asked. Younger children may learn more slowly, but for teenagers in their teens, they can learn all the pinyin in 2 months at most. And then use a dictionary to know all the characters. Learning Chinese characters is very fast, and the language here is similar to the language before he crossed, so there is no difficulty. Can you recognize all the words in 2 months? Rao Jingxuan didn't believe it. How could this be possible? You'll know when you learn it. Yi Yang didn't say more, but looked at Dean Hong. And said politely, Dean Hong, for the future of the Holy Dynasty, we will definitely promote Chinese characters. I hope you don't hurt. After all, we will set the questions for scientific examinations in the future. The implication is that the knowledge Dean Hong taught may not be tested in the future. If they don't take the test, what do they learn to do? Is it just to block the country? Yi Yang didn't say anymore. Seeing that the sky was getting darker, after saying goodbye to Dean Hong, he and Jun Yi returned to the palace slowly. The next day, Yi Yang did the same and ran to the North Star Academy in the north of the city to kick the hall, using the knowledge he had learned to create problems for the other party. Stumped the dean of the North Star Academy, and once suspected that he had no real talent. Even after they left, the dean of North Star Academy had an expression of self-doubt. On the 3rd day, after so much tossing for half a month, Yi Yang finally relied on his own strength to defeat the most fiercely opposed Confucian scholars, and then successfully implemented Chinese characters. On the 1st day of the 8th lunar month, all textbooks nationwide were replaced with Chinese characters. Children who had studied for 1 year looked at the completely unfamiliar pinyin Chinese characters. Fortunately, the pinyin is simple. They learned pinyin in just over 2 months. And then started to learn Chinese characters using pinyin. Children who love learning have learned a lot of Chinese characters in 1 semester, which is better than learning holy characters. Much easier and faster. And mathematics is also started at the same time, starting from the simplest Arabic numerals. Learning Arabic numerals is actually very simple, as long as you know 0 to 10. The later learning is not too simple. After the vertical calculation and abacus were popularized, businessmen abandoned the holy characters of the past and chose Arabic numerals that are simple, quick and easy to remember. Yi Yang also kindly promoted a billing form, in which all monthly receipts, sales, and expenses were filled in. It was clear at a glance. And he no longer had to work all night to calculate a month's bills as before.